Margaret was more than a painter. She was a teacher, a philosopher, an explorer, a gypsy, really, always on the move, always in pursuit of the answers to some very tough questions. She wasn't painting for other painters. She wasn't painting for the art critics or for posterity. She was on a quest that took her to the boundaries of what is humanly perceptible. Her goal was to get a glimpse into the rarefied world of the unknown.
The place of the artist is in the church. That's where it came from. The church came from him. Not the church in our sense of the word, but the impact of religion. And the sense of wonder and also of the supernatural. In my work, there is no supernatural, but there is an imitation of the supernatural. Well, I believe that a great deal of what has happened to man mentally deserves changing and a good shaking up so that you see more clearly not only the content of your idea, but its source.
In her search for the source of her work, Margaret investigated the most traditional and primitive cultures. So the influence of native culture, specifically West Coast Indians, worked its way through and was translated by her psyche. It actually affected her life before it was manifested in her paintings.
Happiness is being wild. Wild like a plant. Grow naturally, not to be imposed and impressed by false standards. Means that you do what nature intended you to do.
We are basically wild bunch, aren't we? Clubbing each other's on the head. That's what our ancestors did.
Well, I don't think killing one man by another man is basically wild. I think it's basically economic. The one thing that man has developed has been his ego. It swells up until it consumes everything around it that doesn't please it. Sometimes it's just a matter of experience. The intelligence is there, but the experience is lacking. So you cannot understand. If you have never seen something before, and it's strange, there you are in a strange world. And the tendency for most people is to be prejudicial. They condemn it, just as they condemn much modern art.
Margaret worked primarily in egg tempera, which meant extensive preparation, making the base, mixing the pigment. It meant total concentration on the application of the line or layer of color, because once it was set down, it was unchangeable. Not only did this mean hard work, it also meant enormous risk-taking on her part, especially when you consider the size of some of her panels. These qualities, incidentally, working hard, taking risks, could be applied to her life as well as her painting.
What's this one called?
Storm Gods.
Oh, this is Storm Gods.
She's always been reluctant to discuss her personal life. Having studied with Hans Hofmann, for instance, or being the first woman faculty member of the Fine Arts Department, University of California, Berkeley, or being collected internationally, or inspiring a generation of West Coast painters, or suffering at the hands of the McCarthy witch hunts. These are all of secondary importance to Margaret. Painting was the thing for her. It still is, even though she's no longer working. She's 85 now, ill, living in poverty in Victoria, BC, writing her memoirs. Until a few years ago, she continued to work, creating these huge canvases that in the end were destined for some cold, damp storage warehouse out in the industrial suburbs somewhere.
The artist measures out the length of the painting, and then he multiplies that by the process of multiplication, and discovers that it has roared up into the millions, and that is a great pleasure to him. And then he takes another device which measures the painting in terms of lack of numbers of digits. And he uses that and discovers there is no value in it. Now you divide the valueless by value, and you have the price of the painting.
Listening to Margaret was like listening to an ancient priestess. It's as though art to her was a way of communicating with the other world. She was very drawn by religious art, and she traveled widely in search of it. But it was in Ravenna, Italy, in the mausoleums there, in the presence of those great sacred mosaics, that she actually felt in herself the direct link between native art, Byzantium, and the Cubists. She saw in the work an attempt of the artist to reach beyond the senses, and she adopted that quest as her own, and she's pursued it ever since, at the cost, some would say, of her mental stability.
There appeared one day on the wall of my room a moving object, and I thought, oh dear me, I have another migraine. Sometimes in my migraines I have wheels moving in my eyes, little tiny wheels suitable only for watches. This object had 1,000,000 little lights moving after her. Oh, so beautiful. They were a pale yellowish green, mostly light, and they moved and moved and moved, and they came down to this corner, and they walked over here, and the leader went on, but one of the animals couldn't find the track and turned around and said, "You're forbidden to go. You could just see it."
Whether it was the pain from the migraines, or the effects of the medication, or a form of paranoia perhaps, precipitated by her firing and ostracism at Berkeley for refusing to sign the Oath of Allegiance, whatever the rationalizations that many have attempted on her behalf, it is clear that Margaret, in her explorations, always walked the fine line between the conscious and unconscious worlds. She often said that contradiction was at the heart of creation. And for Margaret, it was the act of creating that united these divergent worlds.
I have no respect for the average brain. It doesn't function. It merely follows like a sheep. And there is not great satisfaction even in a late recognition, because it's the same flock.
I think he's only got one eye.
That's all he needs.
Yeah.
I have something. All artists do. They have something that they can't see, but wish to God they could do. It's true of everything, every form of art. The writer wishes he could fulfill the destination of his characters in a more significant way. And the artist wishes that he could pull these color areas together so that they would scintillate and create a unit. And so it goes. Now, why does man do that? That is a very interesting thing. That's one of the great questions. Why does man paint? Why does he sing? Why does he write poetry? Why does he consider the ways of himself and his neighbor? That's the work of the artist. No, I have no advice. If they are going to be artists, they don't need advice. They have to search out their own answers to their questions, which is one of the excitements of painting.